Winning the Cold War from 1975 to 1991. The Cold War The Cold War was a long, non-open firefight between the Soviet Union and the USA. The USSR and the US started out by being allies, but in reality they hated each other mostly because of their ideology. After World War II, Europe was split into two, the democracies of the Western world and the communist countries of Eastern Europe. The Western Europe was led by the United States, and Eastern Europe was led by the Soviet Union. The US didn't want the communism to spread in Europe, therefore they paid countries to strengthen their military so they could prevent the USSR to cross borders and take over land. The US and the USSR never officially declared war on each other. They fought indirectly in proxy wars, the arms race and the space race. These races was about being the strongest nation with the best technology and overall just to be ahead of each other.
How did the US win the Cold War? In 1999, the Cold War ended because of the Soviet Union collapsing. The big question is, did the US win the Cold War, or was it the Soviet Union who lost it? Ronald Reagan was president of the US from 1981 to 1999. He was one of the strongest anti-communist leaders at the time. Reagan only received 50.1% of the vote, but a more liberal Republican congressman got 7%, leaving Carter with a mere 41%. Many blue-collar workers abandoned the Democrats while the Republicans consolidated their strength in the South. The shift right had also meant that the Democrats also had lost the control of the Senate for the first time since 1952. It was Ronald Reagan who forced the Cold War to an end. Because of the U.S. superiority in military, technology, and economy, the U.S. leadership's actions may have also had an impact to the Soviet Union collapsing. But either way, the Soviet Union would have fallen then or later, regardless of Reagan being the president or not. Mikhail Gorbachev was the General Secretary for the Communist Party from 1985 to 1999. He got criticized a lot by his own party because he had led it to its end. To save the Soviet Union, Gorbachev came up with two new reforms called Glasnost and Perestroika. Glasnost means openness in Russian, and Perestroika means restructuring. It was the Soviet Union who lost the Cold War, and not the US who won it. The US maybe have helped the Soviet Union to collapse earlier, but they weren't responsible. Why did the Soviet Union collapse? There were millions of starving people, poverty, and a dysfunctional society in the Soviet Union, and that was the reason why they fell.
Stuff that has influenced the US. The high oil prices of the 1970s has stimulated explorations of new oil fields, even as Americans temporarily switched to more fuel-efficient cars. USA had faced an intensification of the Cold War as the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan and apparently threatened the oil fields of the Middle East. relations became so sour that the US boycotted the 1980 Olympic Games. Carter inherited a crisis in the American-Iranian relationship. On average, 750,000 people arrived in the US every year in the 1980s. In just 1 year, the border patrols apprehended and sent back 1 million Mexicans trying to come into the country, and those caught often just tried again. The situation was so out of control that the government offered amnesty and the right to become resident aliens to the illegal immigrants. And 1.4 million people applied. Immigrants are typically young, energetic, and willing to work hard for low pay, and they energize the economy.